All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Let's reiterate what we talked about. We had our segment one. We talked about our Thursday night wrestling review. We talked about just implications heading toward Rebellion. We also talked about how Ring of Honor right now is just under good control under the Ring of Honor World Champion, Mark Briscoe, and also have how him and Griff Garrison kind of had like a nice little, kind of like a reunion since the last time they fought was he was with his brother fighting for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. So pretty cool. And also we have our we talked about SmackDown, a nice little SmackDown preview. We have that match between AJ Styles and the LA Knight happening not as we speak because I feel like it's probably going to be the main event. And then you also have what's next for the Bloodline. Also, what's going to happen between Bailey and Naomi, and then you also have that WWE tag team title number one contendership between the Street Profits, Tyler Bates and Pete Dunne, AOP and Legado del Fantasma. Can't wait to see that match. But yeah, next we have our From Wrestling to Hollywood. Some pretty exciting stuff. Some superstars that obviously they paid their dues within the wrestling world. And yeah. But yeah, so let's get on into it. So one of the first wrestlers that definitely made a statement within moving to features is you have The Rock. The Rock is definitely one of the best superstars in WWE history, WWF. Need I say more? And ultimately, you kind of have The Rock. I think The Rock's first movie was The Scorpion King, or he was on The Mummy, and then they kind of had that nice like little like spin-off, like you know what I mean. But The Rock has also accomplished many other movies besides that. The Rock has been he was in The Mummy Returns. And then you have the 2002 Scorpion King, where you have that badass Godsmack song like I obviously. And then you have him in The Rundown with Sean William Scott, and you have him with Walking Tall. To be honest, guys, one of my favorite underrated The Rock movies is definitely Walking Tall. Walking Tall is a movie that you kind of sit down on a Sunday night, Sunday evening, you see the sun going down, you're like, man, what to watch? There's no wrestling on the TV, what to watch? And then you just click on that clicker. Usually it's on like TBS or like TNT or FX, and you're like, oh my God, like I love watching Walking Tall. But, obviously that's one of my favorite The Rock Johnson movies. If you guys have a favorite Dwayne The Rock Johnson movie, hit it up on the chat at the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Let's just talk about The Rock, mate. Next, we also have, he was also in Fast and the Furious. Also in Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw. He was featured in Fast and the Furious 5, where he was trying to find Dominic Toretto, which is Vin Diesel's character. And honestly, Fast Five is definitely probably one of my favorite Fast and the Furious movies as well. I love The Rock, definitely. And then also you see him in kind of like action movies, an action movie that probably a lot of people don't really realize that he played because he was more like a darker kind of character. Was Faster. Faster, he was essentially kind of like a brother of a kind of like a bank robbing scandal, kind of like a bank robbing group. And he was ultimately kind of condemned to death. And then he came back to. He didn't really come back to life. They shot him in the back of the head. The bullet went ricocheted off like one of his like neck bones or something like that. But then he came back and he found everybody and he was like just like bam, and he was like killing everybody, serving justice, kind of like that. Kind of I don't want to say like a Bible story, but kind of like that kind of like that dark angel kind of thing, like where he came back and he thought what he was doing was worth it. But I don't know, I thought that was pretty badass. And with them, and next we have John Cena. John Cena also is a WWE superstar that absolutely killed it, especially in the in the cinema entertainment industry. um for John Cena, I remember watching him in The Marine. The Marine, he was absolutely stellar. He was great. I liked it. I watched it a lot. That was like one of the movies that I remember buying on DVD for the first time. And I know I'm aging myself here because when DVD came out, I was like, what? You can skip chapters? What the? Like, because before that, you kind of had video cassette and you had to rewind it. And then you'd get a movie from the movie store, from Blockbuster or Superstar. And then it was like, hey, be kind. rewind. And you're like, oh, like I don't want to rewind, but I'm gonna have to do it because I don't want to be a jerk. So, but definitely, I remember watching the Marine like kind of come out here. But I don't know, The Rock. Well, not The Rock. John Cena has been in a lot of good movies. Recently, he's kind of been with kind of like the comedy. I don't know if anybody's been watching. There's something called Vacation Friends. They have a Vacation Friends 1 and 2, and it's kind of like a raunchy comedy. Obviously, if you're looking for PG entertainment, that's probably not what you want to watch. But then you also have John Cena in the Fast and Furious. He also joined the Fast and the Furious as well. John Cena's also been in a bunch of like family movies and stuff like that. To see John Cena kind of like as like a cameo in terms of like movies is not really kind of like not really so like weird. Like, does if that makes any sort of sense. But honestly, John Cena's I don't know, he's a pretty good actor. I think he does that really, really well. And of course, he was on Suicide Squad. He's also on Peacemaker. He was on Playing on Fire. He was on Daddy's Home 2. And he was on Blockers, where he was a insecure father, letting his daughter kind of. I watched that movie, and I think his wife was Leslie Mann. Leslie Mann, usually like famous when it comes to like the Adam Sandler movies, kind of thing like that. But he was like an insecure dad, letting his daughter kind of go off into the world of college, kind of being a little bit, kind of tied up about him going to letting his daughter go to prom, where her prom, where his daughter and her friends vowed that they would, kind of take this next step in their chapter of life in terms of like college, I guess you could say. I'm trying to keep this PG here because what I'm trying to say, I can't just flat out be like, look, like they were ready to like, lose their V card on, high school prom. Like I can't really, further exasperate that. But ultimately, it was a really good movie, and John Cena, he's a baller, man. He's a great baller, especially when it comes to like wrestling and movies and stuff like that. Next, we have Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin is definitely have been growingly one of my very very favorite movie stars. And it's not like he could. Obviously, I don't know if anybody's watched The Condemned. The Condemned, where he's like one of those guys. He's basically fighting for his life, where he's this wrongly convicted U.S. veteran sentenced to life in prison, and he basically whoever is the last one on the island survives and you're free. But also Stone Cold, he was in a couple other movies. I don't know if anybody watched the version of The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler, where he was essentially kind of like a Texas, that kind of like a bigot and ignorant, a little racism sprinkled in there. But ultimately, he played a pretty good role. He was able to kind of do it. Obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin is not racist, obviously, but he was kind of like that. You can kind of portray him in any film as like the bad guy or the good guy. Also, I don't know if anybody, I know I keep starting off with that phrase just because I'm kind of near the older generation, so I'm not sure a lot of you young alpha Gen Z kind of guys like or kind of guys or girls kind of watch this kind of movie. But also there he was in Grown Ups 2, where he was Lenny Faders, which was Adam Sandler's character. He was kind of like his high school bully, and ultimately the movie kind of showed like a morality of when you get older, you grow. You grow. And obviously bullies probably have a lot of regrets. I don't know if anybody's has been bullied or anything like that, but ultimately he was that guy to kind of be like, you know what? Let's make this movie kind of have like this little sprinkled in of morality and be like, look, like if you have a way, if you have a reason, you gotta burn you gotta burn all your grudges because holding a grudge in life doesn't really do anything. It hurts you more than the actual person. Kind of like that thing where like you know let's just be good human beings, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just be good human beings in this world because this life pretty crazy. All right, next we have Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Hollywood Hulk Hogan was definitely in a lot of movies going toward the late 80s, 90s kind of thing. Hulk Hogan was like a huge star in terms of like wrestling and stuff like that. He was bestly known as Thunder Lips in Rocky 3, which also got him fired from the WWE, and which he admitted on the Stone Cold Steve Austin's show. But then you also have a No Holds Barred, which was another movie. You had Mr. Nandy, Mr. Nanny, Suburban Commando, also direct to video pilot movie Thunder in Paradise, which spawned a 22 episode television series from the creators of Baywatch. Baywatch, one of those shows that makes me feel old again. I'm like, oh, David Hasselhoff, like I remember those guys. And I guess he also had a cameo in Gremlins 2. So yeah, honestly, good for him. Next we have Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was kind of like one of those guys that were also kind of like larger than life. He was part of the wrestling scene as well as you know, kind of like an icon, and not just Andre the Giant. I remember the only movie that I really remember watching Andre the Giant was the Princess Bride, where that guy was like, I'm Antonio de la Sera, you killed my family, and now it's time to die. Like I don't know, I remember watching that. It was I remember watching. I think it was on. Oh God, WGN or something like that. Like one of those old movies that like you turn out late at night at like 2 a.m. and you're like, ah, man, I'm so bored, Because it's either that or like you're watching paid programming where someone's trying to sell you some jewelry for like three times its worth. And you're like, oh man, that gem looks so cool. Like, oh, I can imagine giving my wife a rock like that. Like, that's crazy. No, but I remember, I don't know, Andre the Giant was bigger than life. Definitely. Definitely in movies. And he had that amazing anybody want a peanut? Kind of like that I really didn't really necessarily knew where that came from, but I remember recalling that phrase kind of like being like a cornerstone of some of the movies that my friends watched and stuff like that. So I don't know. Andre the Giant obviously jumped into features after some good old fashioned wrestling. All right, next you have Dave Batista. Dave Batista recently has been in a lot of other movies besides you obviously see him as Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he kills it. He was also in the Avengers Endgame. He was in the Avengers Infinity. He was, basically Marvel. He was Marvel bound, and he was an amazing actor. He did good, and he was very very funny, very very funny. I really like to see the animal kind of do that with that. And then he's also in a couple of other movies like Stuber, My Spy, and he was also in Dune, which is also pretty cool. And there was also like I think it was called the knock at the cabin door or something like that, where he came essentially from the future and he had to kill one of these family members to kind of prevent like an apocalyptic war based on this person living or something like that. Kind of dark, but obviously love seeing Batista as Drax, so it was pretty badass. And next you have the man. Next you have Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has been confirmed that he's going to star in a Hollywood movie with Keanu Reeves, Seth Rogen's, Kike Perry. So, should be interesting. It's an action like comedy kind of, it's called Good Fortune. I'm honestly just because Roman Reigns is in it, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out. I know Roman Reigns was also kind of in, shoot, I think Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw, where they kind of needed a place to stay, and Hobbs was like, I know a place in my hometown of Hawaii and the Samoa Islands and stuff like that. And you saw Roman Reigns kind of act then, which is pretty awesome, pretty super cool. So hey, Roman Reigns gonna kill it again. Next, you have the Miz. Of course, you see the Miz in the remake of the Marine, and then you also see him on the TV show of Miz and Mrs. I love the Miz. I love the way he's portrayed. Honestly, I think him kind of being on that TV show of Total Divas with Maurice and also kind of branching out and kind of having his own little Miz and Mrs. kind of helped him kind of propel to be that total like forever baby face. I don't think he can ever come back to like being the giant like heel he's ever like kind of been. But and he was also on the Real World that kind of helped propel his wrestling career. But ultimately, the Miz, I don't mind watching the Miz. So yeah. Hope you guys like that. It was a nice. It's I don't know. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that these superstars are like they're kind of more than meets the eye. Sure, they can kick ass in the ring, do some awesome submissions, and jump off the top rope and do a 350 splash or whatever. And they're larger than life in the professional wrestling industry. But it's always cool to kind of see them like kind of pursue their other passions. Kind of like acting. So, that's cool. All right, we have a fourth and final segment. Obviously, I will not be with you guys this weekend, but I'm going to give you guys the wrestling news roundup, give you something to think about over the weekend. So, just something to kind of ponder and something to, just in case someone brings up wrestling, they're like, what's going on in the wrestling world? You'd be like, I watched Eric's Friday night wrestling news roundup. So, I'm ready to do it. So, hey, let's jump on into it.